You sound great. Well, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a pretty hot topic in regards to the massive changes we're going to be seeing in the home buying market with the recent NAR settlement. We're going to be talking about what that means for you as a home buyer, the ins and the outs, the good and the bad. Difference in approach that you need to take in order to be a home buyer from how we've traditionally entered the market to critical things that you're going to want to know. Some things that could be costly if you don't know. And then ultimately the importance of selecting a good buyer's agent in order to help you navigate this now new home buying process. So with that, I'll bring in our co-host, Chase Hodson from Summit Funding. How you doing today, Chase?
I'm great, Jerod. I'm great. It's good to be here again.
Yeah, good to have you. This is a very hot topic, and I'm glad to have you on to chat about how we can help home buyers kind of navigate everything because it's going to be different.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic. Can't go anywhere without hearing about it. So I think I can give a unique perspective. How lending industry already, um, having been through this right after 2008 and TRID and
Yeah,
changes and everything that was associated with that. So
yeah, your insight will be very, very helpful. There are some questions specific to how this would play out on the lending side for sure. So, yeah, real
absolutely.
quick, let me do a couple of housekeeping things for those of you that I haven't met. My name is Jerod Lee. I'm the associate broker and team lead here at my Home Connection, MHC Realty. Our sponsor for today, which is going to become very helpful for you, especially in these now new changes. And we'll talk about at the tail end the importance, as I mentioned, about finding a really good buyer's agent and the value that they bring to you, why it is that you're going to want to understand that process. These are the things at My Home Connection that we've implemented specifically to bring value to you as buyers, so we make it very crystal clear as to what that value add is. We've partnered with Chase Hodgson on the promotion here of up to $1,000. Summit Funding is going to help out with up to $500 of your appraisal at closing, and we'll help with up to $500 on your home inspection. And then we've just developed a myriad of other things over the last couple decades, a 5-step process to help make the whole home buying process just smooth and efficient. And feel free to reach out to us anytime to take advantage of the promotion, and then the other components that you see here from our 100-page relocation and lifestyle guide to the reports that we have to our podcast series and all that. So with that, we'll bring Chase back on and chat about how have you seen, everybody's talking about it, but certainly us agents, like this is kind of fever pitch. Like
Yeah,
this is a big
yeah,
thing for us.
it is. And I have had a lot of conversations with a lot of the folks that I work with. You being one of them. I guess we get to have ours more publicly now, though, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but it's a big deal. That side of the transaction really hasn't gone through anything like this, and I think public perception, right? Public perception is probably my biggest worry, um, and how we navigate that
Yep.
because and I mean we can get into the nitty gritty here in a little bit, but like it's this is a lot of people make their living, and I think, and I've said this before, I don't believe that most individuals are safe to go through this transaction on their own. And so they don't realize just how important a real estate agent is, someone who's versed in that contract law and is there to protect them.
Yeah.
So that's probably my biggest worry,
Yeah.
how that
Yeah, I
shakes
think
out.
confusion creates, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So, in large part, we want to, clear the air, share with everybody what's going on. Just real quickly, for those of you who don't know, there was a settlement with NAR and some brokerages in Missouri that is going to create some precedents, and we're going to see the implications, ramifications of that over time. Rough estimates are kind of mid-year, July timeframe. We'll see some of the mechanics these changes unfold. What is this going to mean to our industry, and how specifically does that affect you as a home buyer? So we previously talked about pre-settlement stuff and kind of what the problem was. So we won't belabor that. The settlement came down. The judge is going to determine, what things are going to change, procedurally, mechanically, and what that looks like. So there's things that we know, there's things that we don't know. Neither Chase nor I are attorneys, so obviously we're speaking to, the things that we know and trying to communicate that with yourself. But real quick, Chase, on the TRID side, you had a similar disruption, years ago in the loan origination side, and obviously, you made it through that. The world didn't, stop rotating.
It did
Nobody
not.
died.
It can feel like the sky's falling, right? I know there's a lot of agents out there that are having that, and it is, you have to find the new norm, right? Like that's realistically, the business is still going to be done. People still need your help, very much so, and we just have to navigate what that new norm is, and I think at the heart of all of this, with agents and lenders and everybody involved, is how do we protect our home buyers?
Yep.
Like realistically, that's a probably one of the most grave concerns from the lending side, and I know the agents that I work with are very concerned about that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
the basically, right? I mean, to get into a little bit of the gist of it, so they know what we're talking about. For those who aren't aware of what's going on, basically, realtors commissions have to be negotiated up front. They're not allowed to be listed on MLS, and so you're going to have to negotiate that for that. The funny thing is that sellers, that's how it always was, right? We got to the standard where maybe it wasn't done every time, but the buyers and the sellers always had that power. It's a contract that a buyer rep, a contract that you guys sign with your clients, and they always have that negotiating power. You have to realize, if you're trying to sell a house and you want people to come look at it, then the buyer's agents need that incentive, right? That's how they make their living too. They can't just do it for free. And you also have to realize that the majority of buyers, like first-time home buyers and everything, like, paying for that out of pocket up front is very, very difficult, with down payment, closing costs, and everything else. And the way that the laws are written on the lending side, that's not a concession. Realtor's commission is not a concession that can be paid through the loan at this time. So it could eliminate certain people looking at your house and a vast number of people.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the approach side of things, and it's interesting. You and I've been in this industry a long time, and we've talked about this. So, not surprisingly, this come up, but we've talked about the error, the flaw, the inherent flaw of how we buy homes today, and that's see a home online, like a home, ask an agent to go show us the home, and then now we're in the thick of trying to put something together to buy it, as opposed to what we should do is talk to somebody like yourself, make sure
Right.
we're ready to buy a home, we've got a budget, we've got the loan program, and everything is pre-planned, and kind of the flaw that's in that, because once you find the home, then we're under the gun to pull everything together and to make it happen. And we do it, but it's certainly not the best way. There's a lot of reasons that we've talked about this in the past to pre-plan this to make for a much better outcome. And interestingly, this is going to bring us back to that.
Yes.
So
I agree. It has to be planned out front, and you hit the nail right on the head. It has been flawed in that there has not been enough preparation before going to look at houses, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what it comes down to. There's going to have to be negotiation, and understanding prior to everything kicking off at this point, both buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
And so I think that part of it is probably a good thing, right? Like you used the word flawed, and we don't want to be that way. We want this to be an open, honest, and smooth transaction for everybody. And I, I don't believe that it wasn't right, but it did allow things to move pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what it's confusing because there's a lot of things going on out there. And really, the thing to know is the end result's going to be the same, whereas LOs and buyer's agents are going to help you buy a home.
Yeah.
We're just going to do it differently as it relates to the commissions associated to the listing agent and to the buyer's agent,
Right.
without using too much internal terminology. Basically, the seller would pay the buyer's agent through what they call the cooperative broker agreement.
Right.
Now, what we're going to have to being asked to do is decouple that transaction, that the seller would pay the listing agent and the listing agent would pay the listing brokerage would pay the buyer's agent, the buyer broker. Mm-hmm. So now those two, that one commission payout is going to be decoupled, and the buyers are going to be, I mean, I hate to say it, but ultimately responsible for paying the buyer's agent commission.
Right.
Okay, which sounds super intimidating because you're like, wait a minute, Jerod, you told us on a couple episodes ago that I've got an inspection cost, I got an appraisal cost, I got my down, I got my closing cost, I got my moving expenses, I got my utilities set up, right? Now you're going to tell me I got to also pay for a buyer's agent commission?
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we jump to that too much, I'll let you know I've had multiple conversations. I have 4 listings coming up in the very near future, and I've had great conversations with those sellers that, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if we list a little later on, we might need to change how we pay commissions out from the old way to the new way. As you can imagine, buyers would need help, likely need help with the commission on the buyer's agent side. Are you willing to do that? Yeah, of course.
Right.
And none of them have balked. None of them have said, no, I don't want to pay that. Let them figure it out on their own. So what I'm saying is need to be honest that ultimately you as the buyer are going to pay for that. But working with a good buyer's agent, we will go to sellers that have agreed to pay sellers commission.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, to your point, like for both of our industries, right? Like I'm a firm belief. I do believe that the barrier to entry for being a loan originator is a little more steep than being a real estate agent. But it's arguable, right? But I believe for both of our industries, those barriers aren't high enough, and so this will weed out folks that this isn't a full-time job for, that don't know how to negotiate, that don't know how to. Because now you have to do that. And where it was before, people need to understand is that it was there because of a standard, a norm that was set, that was generally accepted within the market, right? Because buyers and sellers have always had that.
Uh-oh. I think I might have lost your internet connection temporarily there, Chase. Well, we'll let your internet catch up. Oh, there you are.
Oh man, sorry, I don't know what happened there. I just lost power altogether for a second. That was kind of crazy.
No problem.
Just down.
Could you? I don't know if you could hear me, but yeah, go ahead.
So, but yeah, so that, I mean, it was a generally accepted standard that had been set, right? And so standards can change over time, but man, I feel like I'm still having internet problems. Am I coming through okay, Jerod?
Your voice changed just or cut out just briefly there, but you're good.
Okay. Yeah. So we just have to realize that now we're going through this time, and there will be a new standard set, right? There'll be a new norm that is generally accepted by the market. It's there has to be a way to do business moving forward, and there has to be a way for buyers to purchase homes. There has to be a way for agents to be able to make money doing that job.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's important for everybody to know that there's a lot of places in the world, what we're transitioning to, that was already the norm there. That's the way that they did business. We just happened to, for whatever reason, in the United States, structure a co-broker arrangement, which worked fine until it didn't. I think the decoupling will make things more clear, more concise, and we can be more articulate about what that commission structure looks like by decoupling it. But initially, it's going to get very confusing because it's just different. And then we got to spell out what the mechanics of that look like. But that's our job as agents,
Yeah.
buyer's agents. Well, one, listing agents, to educate our seller that, hey, they are decoupled, but to think you're going to sell a house without offering something to the buyer's agent, I mean, I think that's going to be tough, right? Because there's just a lot of buyers that just can't afford that. And if a seller wants to sell a house, it's going to be done under a seller concession.
Right. And I do think there will be some kind of movement on the lending side. I don't know what that looks like, right? That we're seeing and hearing conversations. Like I think the first one was from the VA that they're gonna move towards, some. I don't. Forgive me, I don't want to misquote the article or use the wrong terminology, but realtor commissions becoming an approved incentive. Who knows whether that'll happen or not, but I know that there's talks out there about it. It'll change. It'll definitely change the transaction on both sides. Because to your point, and that's the interesting thing about the way and kind of the great thing about the way the commission structure worked here is because it allowed buyers to buy, and buying and selling, you get your money back. You don't pay when you buy, and you pay when you sell, right? For those agents. And so it's kind of unless you stayed in your house your entire life,
You're just paying it forward.
it's just a pretty even transaction, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do believe that there will be some changes on the lending side. There's a lot more legality and governmental oversight, and so we'll have to see what that shakes out to be.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about so the cost that I mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
While we're talking about that, I'm curious about your opinion. House prices.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions that I get is now home prices are going to drop, right? Because no more 6%. Is that what are your feelings on that, Jerod?
So definitely not in our market. That's not, we've talked about this ad nauseum. It's supply and demand that dictates home values. Uncertainty can put a pause on people in the market because they're uncertain. So though maybe they hesitate. So maybe the demand slows down a little bit. So that could affect it, but it's not the fact that this happened. It's just that people paused. It could have been any number of things that make people pause, right? We paused last year because of interest rates.
Right.
Home values adjusted because the demand backed off. Now demand's really going up, but our inventory is still low. So we still got the same issue. I don't know what that pause will look like in the way of the buyer's minds. Part of what I want to do in today's episode is talk about clarity in what you need to do in changing your approach. Instead of going online to the Zillows, the Redfins, the myhomeconnection.coms, and waiting till you find that just right house and then finally reaching out to you or I, reach out to you or I, because we're going to have to operate, we're all pretty sure, under the guise of having a buyer representation agreement before we even start looking at homes, which is the way it should have been.
Yes, 100%. But it's definitely a little bit more of a complicated transaction, at least in the interim, until, like we talked about, that new norm is set. And so, yeah, you need to be reaching out first to make sure that all your ducks are in a row and that you're in the right spot to be able to purchase at this time.
Yeah.
And and to know what to look for, on the listing side now, to make sure that all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed, because that is going to be a big part of it. And it being someone that's been self-employed 100% commission his whole life. Agents need to be paid for their services, and their services you need as a home buyer,
Yeah.
right? So that has to be worked out in advance.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful segue. So we talked about, that buyers are ultimately going to be responsible for the buyer's agent commission.
Hmm.
So the importance of that is getting a good buyer's agent. Before, I hate to say it, but you could theoretically go find not a good buyer's agent. You're not interviewing them. You're not understanding their value add. Are they good negotiators? Are they going to have fiduciary responsibility for you? Have your best interest in mind? Are they familiar with the market? Do they have going to get you reports? Do they have good relationships? With people to get this stuff done? A good inspector, a good title company. All of those things. You didn't really have to focus on that because you didn't interview them per se, because you knew that the commissions were coming ultimately, from the seller via the listing agent or listing
Right.
office brokerage. So I guess what I'm saying is now it's important to go find a really good buyer's agent, ask them all of these questions, get into a buyer's rep agreement so that you can go look at homes, but having that agreement before you find the home is pre-planning, which is ultimately a better way to handle the process.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum on here, right? Like it's where we think it always should have been, as being prepared. It'll turn out to be a better transaction ultimately,
Yeah.
right? Slowing down and taking care of that stuff up front, and it'll help home buyers be more prepared and be ready to go when it's time to make that offer, and they'll miss out on less houses and less opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And to add more to your question about what it will do for home prices, I'm encouraged by the fact that these home sellers didn't push back at all. They
yes.
understood that, hey, it is more clear that I could have negotiated that. I don't quite understand how home sellers didn't know that. I mean, well, in their defense, our paperwork here in Idaho is very clear. It says what the commissions are and where they're going, which sounds
Yep.
like we're a little further ahead than a lot of states. So we kind of already had that. We have now new documents that just are redundant. They state the
Yeah.
same thing, but we had to address it at a national level. But my point is that I'm encouraged that these sellers, they're just like, yeah, of course I'll offer a seller concession to a buyer to help them buy the home. It's easy to say, hey, remember you bought this home 5 years ago? Remember that help that you needed that the
Hmm.
seller gave you? You're offering that to now a new buyer. Are you good with that? They're like, yeah, no problem. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So I
And
don't think that pause is going to be very long, is my point.
Yeah, and I agree. I think we'll get right back to finding our new norm and level of business. And to your point, Idaho is different than a lot of other states. It is pretty spelled out. So the fear in the market is generated nationally, right, by all the news articles and everything. But if you go back and read your buyer rep, it's perfectly spelled out there.
Yeah.
So, and as far as housing prices, that's one of the things, like, oh, now it's going to go down 6%, right? The housing prices, everything's going to be a little more affordable. But like, if the market dictates the pricing, right? And if we're already there, how many people think that sellers are now all of a sudden going to reduce their sales price by that amount if that's where the market is saying they should be priced already?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, like, to your point, it's more of being educated, being proficient at your job, and having those conversations with your sellers, so that they understand, you know, um, the best way to get their home sold.
Yeah. So I've had these discussions with sellers, and that's all been well
Hmm.
received, and I'm encouraged. Um, Obviously, as it unfolds, and now we're talking to buyers and saying, hey, quit window shopping and then going right into the auto dealer and telling them you want the car. You know,
Hmm.
go, come out, talk to us, and interview us, and understand the things that we're supposed to bring, to the table, and make sure we as buyers agents are worth the commission.
Yes.
Whatever that commission is, you know, find a good agent. The one thing, there's a good and bad. I'm excited that there's going to be really good agents at the end of this, because they're the
Yeah.
ones that are going to be able to articulate what their value as is what they bring to the table for you as a buyer's agent. The ones that either don't have the value or can't articulate the value are going to suffer, in my opinion. So we're going to be made to be better by
Yes.
virtue of the new mechanics of this new,
Yeah. And I know I don't know if I told you this or not. I do need to. I've got another appointment coming up here that I
Oh,
need to address here pretty quickly. I got a couple more minutes, but I want to your point. I want to make sure that I get this said before before I log off here.
yeah,
It's I agree with you 100%. As lenders and as agents, we need to be proficient in our jobs. And we need to know what we're doing, and we need to constantly be educating ourselves to get better for our clients. What's happening now with NAR, that's the market speaking, right? The market spoke after the crash on TRID side, right? And it's the same thing that it does with houses. The market is a living, breathing thing, and it will, if it feels that there's inequalities, like it moves us back to where we need to be. Do I think that agents are going to make a lot less money? No, I don't. But they're going to be better at their job, and they're going to, they're going to have to be better at their job, better at sales, better explaining, better at negotiating, which ultimately just, I think we'll wind up pretty close to back to where we were. But the industry itself will be better for the change.
yeah, yeah. I agree. There'll be some bumps in the road, and we'll have to, understand, what the procedure looks like, what the paperwork looks like, the forms, and those will get all spelled out. So I think, if to wrap it up, the takeaway is get with a good LO, get with a good buyer's agent, talk about what's changing, what it means to them, to you as a buyer, and ask them how they're going to represent you in that process of buying a home. And specifically, as it relates to the monies that come out of this, how are they going to help you find homes where the homeowner, the seller, can help you with
Yeah.
those commissions? So
Yep.
I wouldn't get worried about it. I wouldn't get fearful about it. Things are changing. I think your level of professionalism in our industry is going to go up as a whole. So
Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, right? Because I want to talk to all the agents and tell them that, you know, like it's going to be fine. Work hard, continue to work hard and educate yourself at your job. And at the same time, I want to tell buyers to, not to worry. Like there will be whatever the turmoil in between, there will be a new standard. You're going to be able to buy a house. The market's going to continue to move forward. And you want to tell sellers to be, you just want to be realistic,
yeah,
right? Like there's a cost. There's always a cost to sell, right? It's even on your accounts payable, cost of goods sold. There's a cost of selling anything,
yeah,
and we just need to be realistic about that. But to your point, go out and find the right agent. Go out and find the one, whether you're listing or buying. Find the ones that are educated. Find the ones that know how to negotiate, that are 100% out in your best interest.
yeah.
Because it is more complicated than most people think, and they need an agent involved in the transaction.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that. I hope I don't regret making a little bit of a shameless plug here based upon that, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And that is, what's interesting is we at My Home Connection have been developing the perfect home buying process. So our value proposition is already in large part spelled out for you. So, we make it very clear. It's in writing. So we're excited to help. Let us know how we can help. As far as reaching out to Chase, he can be reached at summitfunding.com, summitfunding.net. All of his contact information is available on that page. And, I've worked with Chase for years. He'll take really good care of you and help you navigate these changes on the lending side.
I appreciate that, Jerod. Yeah, I'd love to help anybody. I love the conversation. Wish I could go for another hour. There's a ton that could be covered with this.
We'll be talking more about this, I'm sure.
It's not over. More's coming.
It is not. Yeah. Everything's staying the same for the next couple of months. So,
Yep.
no major changes. As the changes come online, we'll share what those are. And just know we have your best interest as home buyers in mind, and we're going to take good care of you. And what that exactly looks like in detail, we'll let you know as we go along.
As soon as we know.
That's right. That's right. Thanks again, Chase. We really appreciate you, and we'll wish everyone a blessed day.
Talk to you soon, Jerod. Thanks.